and welcome back to the Knights of Christendom. I'm your host Frank. Joining me tonight, my good friends Anthony and Neil tonight, as we got a very big show tonight, jam-packed, lots of things going on. Guys, let's start with the riots in Los Angeles. Of course, this is in response to the immigration sort of tactics of the Trump regime, trying to clear out all these illegal immigrants, which we know we've been flooded with for decades now in America, but especially under the last regime with Joe Biden. And of course, what we've seen on the television set, I don't need to explain to everybody, has been an extreme reaction, and people are trying to figure out what the heck is going on in Los Angeles. Riots, fires being started, police, federal agents being attacked. And people are speculating here, is this an organic movement or is there something behind it? Whatever it may be, it's gotten ugly. And really, the conspiracies all around us are kind of swirling now. Is this a real event or is this another false flag? Are we being set up for legislation later on to take away more of our freedoms? Because what's odd about this, as usual with all of these, is that people sense or feel that there's a greater force behind sort of these Antifa groups that are called out every 6 months, whether it's in Seattle where they sort of partitioned off a part of the city, or the George Floyd up in Minnesota and in other areas, Trayvon Martin. These events always follow with lots of violence and actions by similar groups. Many people, again, speculate there's big money behind the scenes. Anthony, my friend, I'll start with you. What do you think is going on in Los Angeles?
I think it's all a part of the plan. I'll try not to be too long-winded, but I do think that there's the false left-right paradigm that's always in clash here with liberalism, and it's meant to corral us and steer us like cattle, essentially, to the slaughterhouse. And so it doesn't surprise me that this is happening. I think Trump was forced into this no matter what. I'm not saying Trump is somehow involved with some kind of grand conspiracy. He obviously has to maintain order and do what he has to do, and he's going to use the tools that he has at his disposal to do that. And so I think that they're never going to get these 10 million people out of the country. I don't think they're going to get a million people out of the country. I think they're trying to do what they can to mean that they show business, to show that they mean business rather. But at the end of the day, there's not going to be a significant number of people that are deported that came into this country illegally and we have no documentation on. This supports my case that I'm about to make because I don't want you to think that I'm slandering the Trump administration here. That's not what I'm doing. But there's been reports that, let me see if I can find it. There's been reports that there is on the ground either somebody that's infiltrated into ICE or there was a name somewhere. I won't give the name because I'm not sure if I can confirm it yet or not, but it seems like there's been infiltration into ICE and somebody's been giving the precise location of the police officers and also where they're staying in these hotels. And this supports my case in the sense that I think that the false left-right paradigm is being played by one puppet, right? Or a series of oligarchical puppets, not just one. And that they create the chaos on the ground. And then, of course, the Palantir police state system gets rolled out, total surveillance. We're seeing these robots on the ground now that we saw 15, 20 years that were in development. And they brought them out and they were doing the cute little dances and all this bull crap. But those are going to have armaments on them eventually. This is a slow walk. And then they're going to be integrated with AI.
I think I agree with Anthony that I doubt very much that anything real is going to happen as far as dealing with the immigration thing. Um, I think one side's going to say, gee, look, we got all these numbers that we deported. We got all these numbers we took care of. Whether it actually is true or not is another story, but they're going to claim it. And then the other side's going to go, oh man, look how heartless these people are. They're so evil. We're justified in destroying entire cities, you know. But practically speaking, it's going to be the same thing every election cycle.
Yeah.
One side's going to say we need to tighten up the border. The other side's going to say we need to open the border and let them vote. You know,
Yeah.
so I don't really think you're going to have a change where it just stops because it's too useful for both sides to
Exactly.
get their voter base going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like if they actually locked down the border and made it efficient and ran it correctly, they would have nothing to get votes on every election cycle. It'd be taken care of, you know. Um, so they need it to go back and forth in order to play it with their base. Um, and on the conspiracy theory front, if I wanted to go that far with the robots and everything, um, is it possible that right and left are actually in agreement that they want this to play out the way it's playing out, so that they can justify both sides want to justify rolling out Palantir and and the AI, police force basically.
Yeah,
Um,
Neil, JD Vance, I'm hearing, met with Laura Loomer a few days ago. And then well, not a few days ago, it was a few days prior to June 3rd. And then on June 3rd, Laura Loomer came out after this kind of impromptu meeting with JD Vance. And JD Vance, of course, is connected to Peter Thiel. And Peter Thiel is, one of the heads of Palantir. He's not the CEO. I'm sure he's on the board. But anyway, Laura Loomer comes out and says on this tweet on June 8th, so yesterday, time to deploy Palantir tech to Los Angeles to deal with the illegals. You know you'd love to see it. You're lying if you say you wouldn't.
Mm.
well,
Yeah.
here's something interesting that I find is that at least I haven't seen anyone mention the fact that the Palantir was used by Sauron to corrupt the good Saruman in
Yeah.
the story of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So, like, it's odd to me that he's naming his thing after an evil object that was used to basically twist one of the good guys into something bad.
Yeah.
Well,
It's like,
yeah.
so the idea of surveillance being something that's a good idea being used for bad ends. It
Yes.
almost like it writes itself. It's like, are
Yeah.
you doing this on purpose? Are you purposely doing this? Like,
Yeah.
you might as well just say, okay, my
But
surveillance program is
yeah.
Palantir. Oh, and the CEO is Saruman. That's his nickname. It's like, why would you do that? You basically
But
called him the devil.
Are you
the cat.
saying, wait,
Yeah.
wait, wait, I got it. Neil, are you saying that that what's his name? Peter Thiel, because he's not the CEO. Does he call himself that, or does the guy that's the CEO right now? I can't remember his name offhand right now.
No,
His face.
but no, I mean, I'm being facetious, I guess. I'm
Oh, okay,
saying,
okay,
I'm saying naming it Palantir.
right.
It seems so obvious. Like, why are you naming it after something that corrupts, that's used by the enemy to corrupt the good into
I
evil?
I thought you were
You might,
literally saying that he was Sauron. Like
no, no,
that he called himself that. I thought because I was like, because he names all of his stuff
yeah,
Lord of the Rings. So I thought you were telling me that
no,
he
no,
actually named himself Sauron.
no. Well, my point is though, is that you might as well. Like, if he came out and said, yeah, my nickname is Sauron and my buddy is Saruman, it's like, why would you, why would you nickname yourselves that? Why would you call your program Palantir? In the story, that's an evil thing.
They
Why
refer
you're
to it.
naming it after the bad guy?
I
It's
hear,
like,
yeah, that is strange. I don't know if they think it's okay or not. I don't know what they're lining up there with their morals, but uh, you know, they do, I think, call themselves like I think they call themselves hobbits over there. They've got some kind of weird culture going on over there at Palantir. Some kind
well,
of
they're certainly not the hobbits of this story. Okay.
Well, I find it strange because Lord of the Rings is clearly, as we all know, a Catholic story,
right.
and Palantir is not a Catholic operation. So that's what I find fascinating about that. But Maybe they just fell in love with some good cinema.
Well, I
But
hear Peter Thiel is like maybe somewhat interested in the faith to some degree, but I mean, we got to pray for these people clearly because
sure.
that's something if that's true. And he's in a bad spot right now. His personal life, I mean, I don't know if he's still actively homosexual or not, but he is. And of course, I mean, these are the people that are being put in charge of this kind of police state apparatus. And I'm not making that up. The Trump administration approved this. So this is a go. And of course, this is a CIA connected operation.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Well, I know Palantir has tried to destroy sort of right-wing movements in Europe, and so that's kind of a red flag. I know I'm not in alliance with all those right-wing movements over there in Europe. There's some problematic ones, but in general, it is the pushback over there against the radical left. I mean, what we've seen in Germany over the past, well, for the past 80 years, how the right is being openly suppressed now over
Yeah.
there. It's really a tyrannical regime. And again, I always laugh because the promise of liberalism was freedom. The
Yeah.
promise of liberalism was individual rights, individual choice. And the longer this monster of liberalism continues to sort of exist, the more tyrannical it becomes, far more tyrannical than any authoritarian regime we've seen in the past, far more radical than any monarch or even any
Yeah.
fascist leader. That's what's fascinating, Anthony.
Yeah, I agree. We always talk, you and I and Neil always talk about how America is the most propagandized society in the world, but I think I'm going to have to change my opinion on that. And we may, in fact, may be more enlightened than we actually realize. Um, our mutual friend of ours is over in Germany right now, and I was speaking to him the other day, and he was having some discussion with a gentleman over there that's on the right wing. Apparently, it's pretty neutered, and he had no idea that AIPAC had so much control over our Congress, our Senate, our presidency. None at all. They're in the dark.
Well, most classical liberals don't know that. I'm going to tell you right now, most conservatives don't know that right now because conservative talk radio, which is really, what do you want to call it? The big elephant in the room to push sort of conservative ideas to the normie sort of Republican conservatives across the country, that Fox News crowd, they never talk about things like APAC or what's behind the scenes or behind the money. And my conviction is not only has APAC sort of influenced our Congress and our politicians, but also right-wing talk radio. We've done some of the, light, shallow, preliminary sort of investigation into who gets money as far as these right-wing talkers. And it's kind of shady, Neil.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, talk about. I thought about when you said that Charlie Kirk. Um,
Hmm.
I think I said it right. Charlie Kirk, is it?
Yeah, Charlie Kirk.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. There's something
he's
behind him, a
yeah,
force behind him. Yeah,
he's got too much financial connections to this secular Israel,
yeah,
um, and it's becoming more and more obvious um, because it's the few things I've seen from him lately. It seems like he's having a harder and harder time holding his position, justifying
Yeah.
his position,
Yeah.
and that is the sure symptom of someone who's been bought and paid for because they don't have a value based argument. It's really an argument based on, well, they're paying me.
yeah.
And so you struggle to find good, reasonable, rational arguments to defend your position.
Well,
Um,
Neil, to defend that position you're taking, it's not just, it's not just speculation. There's a Zionist family that pays him very well. I can't remember their name right now, but I've looked it up several times and I saved it. Among other families, there's several others, but that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, and that's why
yeah.
right-wing talk radio always sounds the same. Every single right-wing show has your basic same talking points, same stories, same
hmm
perspective. It really doesn't change. And like I said before, right, we've gotten all these neocon perspectives, whether it's the Sean Hannitys, the Charlie Kirks, the Ben Shapiro's, the Pragers, Limbaugh. Where is paleocon conservative talk radio? Where is the Pat Buchanan wing of the conservative movement on talk radio?
Yeah.
I've never found it. I'm not. There may be a show out there somewhere, but outside, very
Yeah.
limited sort of influence options like Rumble or BitChute. Those kinds of shows don't exist. The Pat Buchanan wing, as I like to call it, "Go Pat Go." If you guys remember the '96 chant when he was running
He was
against,
always demeaned.
yeah, and so that's my point with right wing talk radio. It's all in unison, it's all one message, which leads me conspiratorial to believe that there's something behind right wing talk radio that sort of influences its decisions and what stories to talk about and sort of under what context.
And you know what? I would say, unfortunately, at least I believe, I can't prove it, but unfortunately, I think the only way you make it big is by selling out on one of those sides.
Yeah,
Either you're touting the left
yeah,
line and their core talking points, or you're touting the what I would call the Republican right talking points. Um, and if you don't make friends with those people, then you're making YouTube channels that no one watches. You know,
Exactly.
it's like
Exactly.
that's it. I mean, if you
yeah,
want to make it big, you want to be heard, then you got to rub elbows with those guys and bend the knee. You
yeah.
know,
That's
and
pretty
if you
much it.
don't, then you're going to be in obscurity on Rumble. That's just it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And so that's why I found it fascinating. But this is a good point to transition. Well, not transition because we got to say about Trump's reaction here, which is fascinating, and that is Trump is now not only did he override Governor Gavin Newsom over in California, he basically sent in the National Guard. It's so out of control. Apparently now 700 Marines, I think most of them coming from Camp Pendleton, are going to be heading to Los Angeles to suppress what is being called this insurrection of sorts. And so this is really a strong man move by Trump. And the strong man is really in many ways an anathema on the political right because they base their principles off these abstract constitutional ideas of the Enlightenment. And whenever we get a little fascy, right? Whenever we start talking about fascism, right? The political right gets very nervous. But I got to tell you, Trump overriding localism, subsidiarity, going over the head of Gavin Newsom, now possibly sending in military troops. We haven't seen anything like this in a long time. Some say George W. Bush did it in '92 for the riots. I don't remember, but my understanding, last time we had anything like this was during the era of the Civil War. And what's fascinating, Anthony, to me is you should have seen this roaring endorsement today of Charlie Kirk for the president to go in there. Time to take care of this stuff. Let's take our country back. And now that we got to send them back, we don't want them anymore, right? These third world immigrants, they're going to dilute our population. They're going to dilute our bloodlines, basically, what he was arguing, and that we cannot no longer accept any immigrants from third world nations or they're going to conquer us. If you read the statement that he wrote on Twitter, or X, I should say, right? You replaced the word Los Angeles with the word Germany, and this sounded like a speech, in my opinion, that you would have heard from a crazy, again, Austrian painter in the 1930s, Anthony.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's taking money from Zionists because the problem here, I think, when you look at the whole picture, is this whole false left right paradigm and what we were talking about earlier, like what's being set up here. And when you look at Israel, it is essentially a tyrannical state. When you look at Bibi's been in forever, right? I mean, there's tons of opposition to Bibi there. We don't hear that in our media at all. And so, you know, it just follows for me that they don't care whether they get the fascist side that kind of might occur here, or if they get the communists and the liberals, the leftists to go full communist. They don't care which one it is. They don't care who wins. they'll go with either one. They'll go with where the water flows. They've set it up. They know the outcome of either side, and then you get your Palantir police state no matter what. It
Yeah.
just doesn't really matter. So is Trump successful to some degree? Maybe, but it's probably irrelevant. And the way politics goes in this country, uh, I would be shocked if the right wing actually did anything at the end of the day, to be honest. And I do think that even if it did, and let's put this, let's just put this out there. Think about it from the perspective of, well, what if they do go fasci, right? What if it's some kind of like neo-fascist American state? Well, they make all of the white boys happy, right? Because
Yeah.
they seemingly have won, the white boys.
Yeah.
And then you but they haven't won anything at the end of the day, because essentially what it'll be like Ukraine, right? They've got a bunch of neo-Nazis fighting over there, but who are they fighting for? The who put Zelensky in charge?
Yeah. Yeah.
Zelensky's a Jew, and the guy that's running the place that put him in charge is a Jewish oligarch. So I mean, it's like it's but I think it also plays into their psychological mindset. Think about the logical conclusion that you have to make as a neo-Nazi if you believe that if part of your thought process is supremacist, right? Well, okay, you're always talking about how the Jews are in charge of everything. Maybe they belong in charge of everything. Maybe you belong in your space where you're at. And as long as you have dominance over everybody else, maybe you don't care.
Well, Neil, as the token German in the room here, your thoughts?
As the token German, I don't think I'm allowed to have any thoughts
This is
in relate
this is
in
true.
relation to any of those things.
We're on our way there with that legislation, bro.
Yeah, we are.
Exactly. So, the new Nuremberg laws apparently
Yeah.
are going to restrict anything I can say because I'm a horrible, horrible thing because of my, I guess, ancestry. Then again, Bodenheimer comes from Bodenheim, which are Jews. So maybe I can say something. So, I don't know. Look, I like that. I listened to what one guy said about it's not that I'm anti-Jew, it's I'm anti-Jewish supremacy, and I'm against any kind of racial supremacy.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
what bothers me is this idea that they can be involved in just about everything, and we all have to pretend like they're not. And if you point it out, going, "Gee, seems like there's sure is a lot of guys of one particular group in all these places of power, and they seem like they're awfully protected," you get attacked and canceled in order to prove that they're not protected. I'm like, well, wait,
Congratulations, Neil. Congratulations. You're now on the list. You're there.
well, hey, listen, Arnold Schwarzenegger was coming after me anyway. Okay.
Well, guys, I just got a text. This is maybe a game changer in Los Angeles. Migrant riders vandalized the mural of Kobe Bryant and his daughter in Los Angeles.
You
That could be
guys
a
are
Uh
game
kidding
oh.
me.
changer,
Uh
guys.
oh. Hello,
Okay?
racial war, race
Yeah.
war. Just like the guy I was watching on YouTube, he thought that was going to have a race war, but
But
he thought between white and black. But no,
let me
you setting off the wrong people.
why? This doesn't make any sense. Why would a bunch of Hispanics that are upset, not even on Hispanics, I mean, they let in 1 million people. It's not like they're all from Mexico or South America. There were tons coming over from, the Middle East, China, like all kinds of places. They're just crazy. Why vandalize Kobe Bryant's?
Yeah.
That doesn't make
I,
sense.
I I don't know exactly why that, but I know in my area, those two minority groups don't like each other. Um,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
mean,
let me
it's
tell
like
you.
it's almost like it's like they see the other minority group is stealing their minority
Do you
status,
think it's a
their
setup?
clout.
Yeah.
It's possible that they're trying to get them at each other's throats.
Hmm.
But I mean, I don't know if that's like a countrywide thing. I know in New Orleans it's a thing where it's like that particular group doesn't like the other group at all.
Well, let me tell you, I'm from LA originally. I know all that area is being vandalized. I know it very well, born and raised there. And there's a similar, kind of situation there in LA where the blacks and the Hispanics, they don't like each other, to be honest with you. And so they've always been at war with one another. And so that's you bring up an interesting point. And who are these guys that are actually rioting out there? We started with the show, and I got a feeling listen, if you're here illegally somehow, the last thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself. I can't actually see a lots of actually illegals out there doing something that will call attention to be deported. This has got to be manufactured in some capacity. So I got that. But listen, before we move on from this, there's something else I want to add to this, Anthony, that you brought up to me before we went on the air. And that is, if we look at sort of the history of what has happened to the American way of life, how we've been geared to this point with sort of this immigration issue. It begins, of course, after World War II, after America becomes really the world power, the world empire, the leader of the liberal world order. And as soon as the 1950s and 60s, we have all these radical social propositions, the pill being made over the counter, abortion, pornography, shacking up out of wedlock is normalized. Murphy Brown, if you guys remember Murphy
Yeah,
Brown,
I remember.
homosexual stuff, transgenderism. So you brought up the point that they got us in an area where they they discouraged us from building our own families, and then after we're not building our own families because of all these social dysfunctions, they begin to import all these immigrants as a solution to the fertility rates and the shortage of labor. And you said it better than I do. It seems like we've been set up here. Can you help me understand that again, Anthony?
Yeah, yeah. So you talk about TV, right? You talk about programming. That's what they call it, programming. So the message going out to us in the culture at the time, going back almost 60 years, was that, hey, the Earth's in trouble. Don't have too many children. It's overpopulated. I got this message really clear as Gen X when I was a kid. So clear that I remember a conversation I had with my brother when we were like 13. He was like, he had been reading this stuff. He's like, oh my gosh, I guess we can't have kids, like, I mean, this is the level that it was on of the kind of brainwashing we were going through. And so at the same time, they're also, you get the 70s where we break from the dollar under Nixon and we with the gold standards. So gold and the dollar become fractured. This is also when your larger inflation starts to set in and it becomes necessary for the women to work. Well, they've been programmed throughout the educational system and also on TV now, with
Mm.
women's lib, like, hey, you got to go to work. You got to get to work. You're hearing less kids go to work. And by the way, the economic situation is dictating it too. And you're just like, oh, okay, well, we got to go along with this because this is what's happening. Because people really didn't understand the complexities of the monetary system back then. They weren't thinking about this kind of stuff. And so then now all of a sudden, oh, we programmed you to do this, but you all didn't have enough kids. Your population's in decline. We're going to have to import the entire third world now. And what it is, Frank, what I was saying is because Americans, especially, our European stock, we are not cooperative with regimes that want to enslave us. So why not bring over some Indians? Because, well, they existed in a caste system. There's plenty of people that would come over here and be happy to take our jobs and our labor. It's like this H-1B issue that Elon wanted
Yeah.
to go to war over, right? Everybody gets the point. I'm not going to carry on, but it does. It's upsetting, and this is where I'm glad that I'm Catholic. Thank God for the Catholic Church. I had my 5 sons. I didn't listen to the propaganda. I'm grateful every day. And by the way, for the trads out there that want to knock NFP, just as a tangent, Frank, for the trads out there that want to knock NFP, you know what? If I had followed the trad way of thinking, because of the situation I was in with my health and also with my finances, I would not have been able to have uh, three of my five sons. But because of NFP, God gave me three more sons. And so I'm grateful for that every day. And I'm grateful for the church and its direction.
Yeah, Neil, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I kind of see it as a controllable um, slave caste, basically. Um, they see these people as a workforce that they can use. They see them as, well, we're going to have them on contraceptives and abortions so we can control their population.
Exactly.
They
Yes.
see, they see that it's easy to get them in a victim mentality so that we're easily controlled, right? Um, and they basically take the ones who are less easily controlled, such as those of us with European Caucasian descent, right? And they push us out, and we have small families now. We don't have children anymore, right? So we're going to be less and less of a dominant force.
Yeah.
Um, and yet, while this is going on, all those people who are the oligarchs, the ones with the power and whatnot, they're not contracepting, they're not aborting.
No, that's
So
true.
they're going to maintain their power through their own large families.
Right. It's so, okay, and we get back to the classical liberals, we get back to the conservatives. Because when I was in the conservative camp, they would look across the pond over at Europe and say, well, listen, of course they're going to be invaded by immigrants. They're not having children. Look at Italy's birth rate, Spain, all of them. Nobody's having children. They're doing this to themselves. They need to put up or shut up, Anthony. Is it that simple?
I'll let Neil field that.
I've got two kids, so I've already put up a couple times. I'm growing my kingdom.
Well, I think the point here is that, and this is what I said to them all the time. Well, when you're attacked on every front, as
Yeah.
it's the institution of family, whether it's the moral front, the cultural front, the economic front, there's real reasons that would discourage really families from having and procreating more children in this world. It's not a matter of
Well,
we're all being selfish and we don't want to have children. We've all been disincentivized in this liberal society, Neil.
yeah, but you see, basically they say, hey, have smaller families, so that you can, so you're not eating up all the resources. So this and so forth and so on, right? The ones you have, make sure they're in a public education system so
Yeah.
we can tell them how to think.
Yeah.
Um, and then they're like, well, see, look how bad society is and how hard things are. I'm like, you created the situation
Yes.
that makes having a family so damn hard.
Mhm.
You're creating the society that makes me want to run away from society and have my kids not socialize. You know, like you're creating the crazy and then you're complaining that I won't socialize my kids with the crazy.
Yes.
It's like
And
you created it.
yeah.
So yeah, of course I don't want them around you and your kind.
And
You're nuts.
compare and contrast Western Europe birth rates, fertility rates before and after World War II. That's all you got to do. For some reason, when Europe was still Catholic, whether they were monarch or whether it was some authoritarian fascist regime, Catholics in those countries were having children. My father's side, there were seven of them. On my mother's side, there were seven of them. And that was still a time and age where you lost some children every once in a while. That shows you how many kids we were having. The average family in Italy, I would have to look it up, but I would say it's at least six, seven, or eight, right around there before World War II. But after World War II, after American liberalism and ultimately Stalinist communism come into Italy and other nations like Germany and Spain, the birth rates collapse. There's something there socially that liberalism brings that discourages and destroys the family, guys.
Well, and see the thing is too, I don't understand how they did such a good job of getting the generations ingrained in their brains. Okay. that hating and not wanting children is somehow not self-hate.
Yeah, I know.
Like, because you were a child. If you don't have a family, put it this way, if your parents had your attitude, you would not exist. Don't you see that? It's like, no, they don't even make that connection. It blows their minds. I've brought this up with my students before when they started on this whole, oh God, I don't want kids. Oh, I can't stand them. I'm going, what? That's self-hate, though. You're hating yourself because you were a child. You're older, but you're still the same person as you were then, right? You're just more mature and older. So it's like, and then you saying, well, I'm not going to have a children. You want your family to die off, is what you're saying? You
No.
don't want your family to grow. You don't want your family to expand. You don't want your family to have, land and more wealth. And you don't want that, is what you're telling me. You want it to start and end with you. You want to die alone, like with no kids, and call it a day because I got my money today. It's like, are you out of your mind? Well, how do you think kings and kingdoms happened?
Yeah.
They started off as a mom and a dad having kids. And then they had more kids. And then those kids, guess what? They didn't run off to New York or some other foreign place. They stayed local and they started their own little business or whatever happened, farming, agriculture, whatever. They had kids and their kids did the same thing. And before you knew it, you had an entire kingdom there, a tribe that became a kingdom. That's how kings and queens came about. It's like, but you people, you want to contracept, abort, yourselves into oblivion. And you say that
100%.
as if it's a great champion heroic thing because, you know, you're singing about your sexual body parts and you're making money, but it dies with you.
Yeah.
You have no life.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically, you know, contributing to your own self-extinction of your bloodline. It's
Yeah.
strange. It's odd, and how they've convinced us to do that. And that's my point. Post-World War II liberalism has been a disease, and we've never really dealt with that. And at the end of the day, they make us feel guilty because we're not having enough children to survive. So
Well,
conveniently
thank
enough,
God. Thank God they'll have a TikTok video out there showing them dancing half
yeah,
naked.
there you go.
Thank
Yeah.
God. At least they'll be
Okay.
remembered for that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the next topic here, guys, I think we covered the riots and Trump and all that stuff pretty good. So Pope Leo gives a homily here in the feast of what is it, the Pentecost, I believe is what it was here. Talking about I guess tearing down borders, having peace, and I guess he's looking across the globe, and we have lots of issues, not only in LA, in Ireland, they're rising up. There's issues going on with immigration in Spain and Italy, and of course, the whole Gaza and Israel situation over there. And so, but the detractors of the Catholic faith, of course, took their liberties to, especially in America, to compare and contrast and take the Pope's message and compare it in this left and right paradigm, saying that, hey, the Pope is saying that we're doing something bad here in America by sending these illegal immigrants back. Now, I read the document. It was very vague. He didn't mention any countries. The only indication I got was the sort of the quarantine zoned right zones, and those exist right now, of course, in Israel, and that's how I took it. But it was a very vague document, Anthony, talking about tearing down borders, bringing peace, that kind of stuff. But many people here in the United States took it as attack against MAGA and the Trump regime over the immigration policies.
I didn't get a chance to read it myself. Does he literally say tearing down walls?
I would have to look it up, but
Okay.
I'm paraphrasing. Let's put it that
Okay.
way.
Okay.
But yeah, but bridging gaps and closing or opening borders, something to that degree. I should have had it in
Okay.
front of me. I apologize.
No, no, that's okay. I just wanted to be sure. No, I really don't have an opinion because I haven't read the
Okay.
document. So I just, yeah.
Neil, did you get a chance
Yeah.
to follow the story?
No, I haven't really read it. If he's talking about an immigrant has a right to migrate in order to find a better life, then we're in agreement. That's been Catholic teaching.
Yeah.
Um, Now, just because you have a right to migrate doesn't mean that a country must let you in. Um, because the country is sovereign, has its own rights as well. Um, if he's talking about, you know, people having more charity for each other, no problem there. Because a lot of times we use the words like border and tearing down walls. It's like a metaphor. We don't always mean literally.
Hmm.
Uh, if he's referencing Gaza, that would actually make more sense if that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, I've always just bought what the conservatives has always said about Gaza and the Hamas and the terrorists and this kind of stuff, and Israel is our last great hope, for the Middle East, that kind of thing. But it's like over the past couple of years or so, uh, I don't know. I'm starting to lean more towards what people are saying about Gaza being basically a giant concentration camp.
Yeah, this has
Um,
been a great exposure. They've done it to
yeah.
themselves. They've done it
Oh, wait. So you guys are lining up with Greta Thunberg, really?
to
Well, okay. Wait. You said it like that. I might have to rethink my position.
Exactly. That's what they want.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they want.
Well, put it this way. Um, I don't know what she said exactly. I only saw like a reference to it recently, but she's irrelevant to anything and everything in the world to me. So if she happens to be lining up with me, well, thank God. Um,
Right.
but I don't even know why we even talk about her. She's just some special needs kid who, you know, lost her mind over the environment at some point, and for some reason she ended up in the news.
Yeah.
Uh, which I feel bad for because I believe her parents and the media are basically using her.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if the Pope is talking about that kind of stuff. I don't see a problem with it. Now, if he really is saying, well, the U.S., you should just let everybody in, you know, that
Yeah.
wouldn't make sense because the Catholic Church has always taught that a country is sovereign and has a right to control its borders, um, which is what the Vatican itself does. You cannot just go into the Vatican,
Yeah.
pitch a tent, and stay the night.
Yeah.
You cannot get. I mean, try and walk past a Swiss guard. See what's going to happen. All right,
Right.
they're the most
Yeah.
highly trained people on the planet. They're going to
Well,
take you out. You're not going anywhere.
well, I took it as a general pastoral concern. There was nothing definite about what he was talking about. It's one of those things where we're going to go back and ask, the Vatican officials, well, what did the Pope really mean by that? And usually we don't get any clarification. Again, a vague statement. I don't know what to make of it. Because we're in the midst of this battle in Los Angeles, the timing of it, people are assuming that, you know, again, attacking the Trump regime as if American politics, the left and right paradigm, is supposed to dictate what Catholics do, which we know we transcend that. We're not involved in that in many ways. And so, but it was an opportunity. And so there
It
it is
it
there.
strikes me, judging by the way it's being described, as simply um, diplomatic uh, politics that the Pope is doing there.
Yeah.
He's saying he's keeping it vague so he doesn't offend anybody too much, but at the same time trying to be appealing to some others, which strikes me as very political. And popes have done that throughout history. Every
Yes.
politician has. I mean,
Yeah.
let's not forget. Yes, he's a pope, but he's also a politician and as a world leader,
Mhm.
and
Well,
he has to deal with other world leaders.
he does.
So he
And
has to be careful how he speaks. You
I
know,
agree. I think the issue is again is that we're a universal body of believers. It's different. While there's a very nationalistic side of me, whether it's my American side to a certain extent or my Italian side, as Catholics, we're a universal body of believers. And if there's fellow Catholics involved in the midst of these sort of deportations, how do we deal with that? Is there a proper and just way? And are we allowed to be concerned with it, or do we simply take a nationalistic attitude toward it? I think the Pope is dealing with this from a pastoral sense, and he's saying from a standpoint of human dignity, this is what, okay, let's be careful here. We have brothers and sisters. It's similar to the problem during World War II with the Nazis, and everybody want to know why Pope Pius XII didn't condemn the Nazis. Eventually, he got tired of them because, well, so did Pope Pius XI for that matter. But the point was, half of Germany was Catholic. it wasn't that simple. You can't look at them as like, okay, let's go bomb the shit out of Germany because they're such bad guys. Well, wait a minute, there's a lot of Catholics there too. The church looks out for all of these souls. So it's always in a compromised position because in a spiritual sense, he's right. We Catholics, we don't have borders. We don't, right? Whether you're in Mexico or Guatemala or in Italy or Spain or China, we're all brothers in Christ in this universal church. And the church has to deal with this reality. The politicians don't. Trump doesn't. He's not even a Catholic. And so I just think he was being very pastoral. Could he have worded it better? Absolutely. To give us more of what he was saying, but he was vague. I don't even see it as a contradiction in any kind of way, to be honest with you guys. So,
Yeah, and, and that's why our politicians, one, hate Catholics, and two, want
yeah,
American Catholics to be Americanists. They
yes,
want them. They want American Catholics to be pro-contraception and abortion, whatever, because that immediately draws a divide. It cuts us off from Holy Mother Church at that point. It
yeah,
cuts us off from our brothers and sister Catholics in every part of the
right.
world
Mm-hmm.
because they're faithful, we're not. And now all of a sudden, there you go, divide and conquer.
Yeah,
Because like you said, we have this universality. But if you can get Catholics to be Americanized or Protestantized even, well, then that universality gets cut off.
yeah,
And
yeah.
now it's us versus them. And then we're just not, all we have left is nationalism.
Right. And I think it comes down to, again, the difference between Catholics and Protestants is we're a universal body. And Protestants, in a sense, when they were more focused on denominationalism, were kind of universal. But the emphasis, the majority emphasis within Protestantism now is focused on local churches, local pastors. And so they're allowed to sort of detach themselves from everybody else. It's a strange thing. We can't do that as Catholics, and we have to always keep that in mind. So,
Well, you notice, I'm sorry, you mentioned the pastor and that kind of thing. You notice that's exactly where the liberals went. Like Martha Sanger.
yeah,
She went straight for the pastors and got
yeah,
them to get the people on board. So as
yeah. And
soon
there's
as you start dividing them up like that, all you need is the pastors, buy them off.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So I just think for Catholics, this is complex. I think it's an overreach by the critics of the Pope, and I'll just leave it at that. Anthony, my friend, any last words?
No, I think that wraps it up for me. I've said enough tonight.
No, buddy, any last words?
Um, Christus Regnat, Christus Imperat. That's it.
All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The night of Christendom Roundtable. We're back, and we're as controversial as ever. There you have it. I want to thank my good friends Anthony and Neil for joining me tonight. This is Frank signing off. Franklin speaking. Good night, everybody.